What is going on, everybody? TasticSilver here, and welcome to a World of Warcraft video. Today, we are actually going to be going over Exorsus Raid Tools. Exorsus Raid Tools is a fantastic add-on to use, especially if you want to become a more effective raider as well as raid leader. For instance, it has different features that you can use. For example, raid cooldowns, which you can see over here on the left. Whenever a cooldown is used, this will be able to track how much time is remaining on that cooldown, as well as how much time is remaining until that cooldown is available again. If I had other people in my group with me, it would also list their available cooldowns and how much longer again until they could use it. So for example, let's say I want to have, someone get my Blessing of Protection. I can see that it is currently available. I'm going to go ahead and pop it, and you'll see that it changed into a countdown for what's currently remaining on it. And once it reaches 0, it will now tell me that I have the remaining 5 minutes left until that is available from myself again. If there was another paladin, let's say his name was John, in this list right underneath mine, you would see John listed with Blessing of Protection as completely available. So I could be like, hey John, I currently have my Blessing of Protection on cooldown. Please use yours on Sam, for instance. One other thing it can provide is a marks bar. For instance, if I were to select myself, I can actually mark myself very, very quickly with this marks bar. If I was in a party/raid group, on the bottom you'll see other colors right here. This allows you to very quickly place world markers on the ground. It has a few other different things, such as clear, which will clear those marks right there. You can do a ready check. You can check your parties or raids information for food, flasks, runes, Vantis runes, and so on. And you can also do a pull timer. You can set it to have 2 separate pull timer times. So for example, if I right click it, I have it set as 10 seconds. If you right click again, it'll cancel it. If I left click it, I have it set as 20 seconds. And let me go ahead and left click it to cancel it. So you can set 2 separate pull timers, one for left clicking, one for right clicking. If, for instance, let's say you have someone in your group that has Font of Power from Ashara, and they need a 20-second cooldown in order for in order for them to get, sorry, I can't talk today, in order for them to get the most effective use out of it. So you can set, the 2 separate times, if needed. Otherwise, you can always just keep everything the same. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go over the very basic configurations of it. If you have any questions in terms of any of the configurations or tabs, or would like a little bit more in-depth details on how Exorsus Raid Tools works, please feel free to add a comment down below, and I will be sure to answer any questions that you guys have within, a decent amount of time when I am able to. So once you have it downloaded, you'll see on your minimap that you have this R icon. You can click that to open it, or you can always type in chat /RT. That will also open it. It will always open to the previous window that you had, open. So I actually had this open because I just wanted to make sure this was enabled so you guys could see exactly what it looks like. But if it's the first time you've ever opened it, it will go to this kind of welcome screen /info bar. So what I would always recommend you guys do first, especially if it's the first time you ever use it, I would go down to Profiles. This is the last tab called Profiles, and I would always recommend creating a new profile which you can use to copy to other characters. The reason why you want to do a new profile is because you kind of don't really want to use, default all the time. And if you want to do different profiles for different things, so for example, if I'm raid leading as a tank, I would definitely want to see, the other tanks, cooldowns, and I would want to see healing cooldowns. I wouldn't necessarily need to care too much about DPS cooldowns, because, I'm really more focused on what the tanks, the heals are doing, because I definitely, believe my DPS, is effectively, doing what they need to do, and I could always check logs later. Whereas if I was a DPS, let's say, then I definitely would care about, what the DPS are doing, because I would definitely probably want to coincide my cooldowns with theirs so you can get as much output, in DPS as possible. So you definitely want different profiles for different needs. So for this case, since this is just a, quick video tutorial, I'm just going to do video profile. So I know later on, I can always delete it later. If I were to go onto a different tune, I could always copy video profile, on that tune, and anything that we change on video profile will get uploaded to whatever character I'm on at that point. So let's go ahead and click add. You'll see a warning window says, do you want to activate it? Yes or no. Let's click on yes. And when you click on activate, it will reset your UI because, of course, it's a different profile. So as you can see, let me go ahead and hide my chat and quests real quick. You'll see that my marks bar and the raid cooldowns are now missing. I am on a completely fresh profile, which means nothing is enabled. So let's go ahead and open up our raid tools. First tab I would recommend is going into raid cooldowns. Under raid cooldowns, this will allow you to track anything that you specifically want to see based on those cooldowns. So for instance, if I want to track Paladin's Avenging Wraths, I can click on this. I can click on enable. And in the raid cooldown window that pops up when you enable it, you'll now see Avenging Wrath as Holton. If I add another Paladin in my group, you would see, their name listed under, the Avenging Wrath's bar, and let's say it's John. So you'll see John listed with Avenging Wrath. You can go into the configuration tab right here, and you can always change which column you want to see. So if it's a Holy Pally with Avenging Wrath in your group, you'll see them in column 1. Whereas for Protection and Retribution Paladins, you'll currently see them in column 3, which is right here. Column 2 would be here. Column 1 would be right here. So 1, 2, 3. I don't have column 4 enabled, so you'll only see the 3 columns. So depending on where you're configuring, where you want to see that talent specifically, you'll see it in that column. So like, let's say, I always want to see, protection paladins and protection warriors, the tank druid, the bear form, I forgot the name, don't mind me, I'm just silly right now. You can always change it, to always that specific column number. And if you only want to see DPS classes, you can change it to that specific column number. And you can go up to 10 columns in total, which is kind of problematic because you don't have, too much of a, screen size. But you can always put this kind of like on top, and kind of change the scaling to make it a little bit easier, to use based on what other UI things that you do have. So once you have this listed or checked that you want to track it, anytime that a paladin uses Avenging Wrath, you'll now see that cooldown go off. I have the now 15 seconds remaining, and then once this reaches 0, it'll show me how much time I have left until I can use it again. If John did not use his Avenging Wrath, you would see that that bar remains as a steady green, so we know that John is able to use, his own. You can go into appearance to change any of the appearances that you want. So for instance, if you don't necessarily like this way right here, you can actually go to some pre-made templates and change, your pre-made template based on, your own personal kind of, how you want to visualize it. I personally like the regular one as is, so I kind of leave it as is, but you can always choose what you want to do. Or if you don't want to use a pre-made template, you can always go in and change things as you want. You can change the scaling, sizes, you can change colors, you can change the fonts, you can change the names and titles, stuff like that. So there's different options you can do, and here is your column setup. So as you can see, since I don't have 4 enabled, it's only using the general settings. So under general, that's where you'll see this. Whereas if I now go into, this tab and enable it, it'll still use general settings, but it'll open up that new, column. So I just don't have it enabled because I don't necessarily, need all 10. Next one is Battle Res. Battle Res will allow you, if you enable it, to see when your Battle Res is available, if you have one, or if you have other people in your group, you'll be able to see how much time is remaining if all of them are used, or how much you actually have. So for instance, as a fight goes on, and let's say you have a druid, a demon or death knight, and another druid, let's say, you technically would have 3 battle reses available. So you'll see like a little 3 right here in the bottom right corner. It'll tell you, okay, you have 3 available. So if, let's say, a druid uses one of their rebirths, it'll change to 2. Let's say, the Death Knight uses their Raise Ally. It'll show 1. Let's say another druid uses theirs. It'll go to 0. It'll change this kind of like a darkish gray type thing, and it'll tell you how much time left into your next, battle res is available. Normally it takes about 5 minutes for another battle res to happen, so you can just use this tab to see how many you have available or how much longer until the next one is free. You can do fight logs directly from here. What this will do is, if you guys ever have logged a fight, you would probably be uploading it to WoW logs. You can use this one internally as kind of like an internal WoW log. So if you click on Go to Logs, you'll be able to see exactly kind of what happened in kind of a WoW log type format, but in game directly, making it a little bit easier to see, what you can do. So there's the different, options available up on top to see, what's going on and how to improve, yourself. I personally don't use this, but if you guys want kind of a more in-depth look into this or need help setting this up, I am more than willing to do so. Please just let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely give you guys some more, information as to how, this logging exactly works. It's pretty much similar, to WoW logs, but it's a little bit more in-depth, and it can take some time to set it up. So just let me know if you want to, and I will definitely give you some more information to that. Raid Inspect. This is the tab that I absolutely love the most, because this will give you information about every single person in your group, and you can choose exactly what you want to see. So for example, if I don't want to necessarily see equipment, I can see, my talents. So I can see, they chose Holy Shield instead of Redoubt. Well, Holy Shield is better to use, but, let's say if the encounter calls for Redoubt, you can be like, hey, Halton, can you change your Holy Shield to Redoubt with a tome real quick? And then you can change it back, after that fight. So you'll be able to see everyone's talents. You can see everyone's Azerite power. If you hover over an Azerite power, you'll be able to see what they potentially could have used, but you would actually have to know what each one, which spec is for that one, because it actually doesn't show you the spec. If you hover over this, it'll just show you what's in, those rings. So for example, let's see, here we go. With this Elemental Whirl one, if let's say this Winds of War was better for me, even though it's not as a protection paladin, you could be like, hey, Halton, you're not using, Winds of War. Please make sure you go to the Azerite trainer to, change that. And you can see other things as well, such as other info, which will give you like their strength and, different abilities. And you can see achievements if you want to. I don't know why you would want to see it, but you know, you probably wouldn't need that tab. Equipment is you're going to probably be your best bet, you know, in general. What you can do under here is actually filter specific things. So for example, if you want to see anyone who does not have enchantments or does not have gems, you can select those two right there, and your gear will start flashing if someone is missing gems or enchants. I actually just replaced my axe, so as you can see, it does not have an enchantment, so it is flashing that red. So you'll be able to see, hey, Halton, your axe is not enchanted. Please go take care of that before raid. Next tab is the notes. These notes will allow you to create notes that will show 24/7 pretty much until they get disabled or get changed. So for instance, you can always have a personal note up at all times. So let me go ahead and enable it just so you guys can see what it looks like. Here we go. Here is the note tab. You can always, you know, change it, you know, under settings, you know, if you want to. But let's say, you know, I want to, you know, give myself a note saying, okay, on, you know, you can change, you know, a specific boss if you want to. You don't necessarily have to, but since this is a personal note, you actually can't choose, you know, which boss. You would have to actually choose, you know, a specific note type. For the personal note, let's say I want to know, okay, you know, follow up with, you know, Sam on, you know, logs or something. So that will always be, you know, in my note tab until I change, you know, that note to, you know, new note, for example. I'm going to go ahead and disable it because I don't need it right now. But you can always, you know, add a whole bunch of notes if you want to. So for instance, in my other profile, because I'm on a new profile, I have about 20 notes, you know, down here for specific bosses. So I just, you know, click on which note I want to send to people. You'll click on that note. So for example, actually, you know what? Let me show you. So here's note 2. Let's say, you know, this note was for, you know, Malt, for example. You know, remember to pick up the orbs during P2. What you'll do is you can move to a clean copy, save and send, which now sends that information to whoever is running, you know, those notes in Raid Tools. So let me disable that real quick. And that is the notes. It's a pretty handy feature, especially if you want someone to see, you know, specific information throughout the entirety of a fight. You can also do visual notes. I personally don't use this because there's actually an add-on called Mythic Dungeon Tools. Mythic Dungeon Tools is a little bit better when it comes to kind of like a visual type thing. So I personally don't use this for anyone. Even in a raid, because it kind of is, I mean, it's not pointless, but you don't really need it, so I'm not going to go over this tab, but if you want some information about this, you know, again, let me know in the comments below. Raid check is extremely important because you definitely want to know, you know, what people are doing and what they have available. So what you want to make sure to do is look through, you know, each of these options. So for instance, if you want to see runes, you definitely want to check that. If you want to see if people have specific buffs, you definitely want to check that. If you have a specific, you know, food requirement, like if you know that you don't want people to have anything less than, you know, a 100 food, you can check 100. And anyone with less than 100 food will show up as not having food at all. So you can tell them, hey, Halton, you have, you know, the wrong food on you. Please make sure that you're using, you know, the feast or the appropriate food. You can change to show when flasks are expiring. So for example, it always defaults to 5 minutes. You can change it to 10 minutes, stuff like that. Or you can just do no, which means they don't have a flask at all. You know, I would always recommend 5 minutes because during the fight, sometimes it can last more than 5 minutes. So if they drop that flask, you know, it can make or break, you know, a pull. I mean, it shouldn't, but you get the drift. So let me go ahead and enable it real quick so we can run through a test so you can see exactly what it looks like. And that's what it looks like. So you'll see this person has every single thing. This person doesn't have a rune. This person doesn't have a flask. This person doesn't have food. This person is missing a buff. These people have absolutely nothing. It's a green check if they are ready. It's a red X if they are not ready. It's a yellow question mark if they are still deciding if they are ready or not ready. Oh, there we go. That person was probably still deciding, so it changed them to not ready. And it lasts about 20 seconds for the ready check, and it'll disappear automatically unless you press that X to clear it off. Invite tools. I personally don't use this, but you can, if you want to. This actually was extremely good, back in, I would say, like Legion and previous expansions, because a lot of people were able to do, pub groups like a little bit easier. So, for instance, a lot of people would use those, whisper me for invite type things. So, if people were to whisper you, like, invite me, please, dude, if someone wrote those exact words, in a whisper, it would, invite them if this invite only guild members was not checked. If this is checked, only guild members will be invited, to your group. You can actually do invite by list by adding people's names and it'll invite them. Or you can do based on ranks. So, for instance, let's say this Squirificer. I don't know the ranks of my own guild because I'm actually new to it. Like, let's say this was called, Raider. Let's say you can actually click Raider. And let me uncheck that. If this says Raider, for instance, and you only wanted to invite Raiders, you'd be able to click on that and invite button, or you can do /RT inv, and that will actually invite people based on that rank. So you can do it based on ranks, you can do it based on a list, or you can do it based on, people messaging you. So I personally don't use this, but if you want, any specific, information on how to actually set it up, again, please feel free to let me know. Marks bar, extremely important. Always enable marks bar. If you don't enable this, you're just being silly. And I don't know why you wouldn't want this, because it is extremely important to use. Like I said earlier, let me actually exit this out so you can see again real quick. If you hover over yourself and select it, you can give yourself, marks very, very quickly. You can give yourself world marks on the bottom. You can do the ready check. You can do the pull timer very quickly. It's, as you can see, it defaulted to 10 seconds, both as a left click and a right click, because we didn't actually set the 2 times. I'll show you that in a second. And then here's your, potion, flask, food, and stuff check if you click on this potion icon. So marks bar, 100%, always enable that no matter what. And down here, pull timer seconds. If you left click it, you can change this to the 20 if you want to. Whoop, not 2010. That's going to be a long ass pull timer. And so 20 seconds, 10 seconds if you right click, stuff like that. So always make sure you set these up if you have different pull timers, as needed. Otherwise, you can always just leave this at 10, and no matter if you left or right click, it'll always be 10. This marks tab, I don't use it, but if you put in someone's name specifically, it'll always give them that mark. So if you have, 2 tanks who will 100% be there every single time, which half the time doesn't happen anyway, you can put them in this list and they will always be given that specific mark. Don't use this. It's pointless, honestly. This is actually the most pointless tab in here, to be honest, because you never know if someone's going to be there 24/7. So I would just recommend not doing it. This timer tab allows you to change some dynamic times. So it'll allow you to know, if a specific class or role needs extended timers. So for instance, this is currently set as 25 for a Supply Rogue, because some of their specific talents, I'm not really sure if it still needs 25 seconds on a Supply Rogue. I honestly don't know anything about rogues, so that's the only thing I actually cannot help you with is rogue info, so I apologize for that. But I personally don't even use this timer one because you really don't, need it. I mean, you can, but it's really silly, and I really don't think, you need it at all. So I would recommend, just not to, use this. If you necessarily need to, you can. And again, if you need any specific information on how to actually, set this up correctly, please feel free to let me know. But I personally, don't use it, but I can definitely help you set it up if needed. This bonus loot just gives you history of any bonus loot that's rolled, in your groups. It's kind of another pointless tab, but it's kind of nice to see, who has, used a bonus roll and see what they've gotten. I mean, it's kind of more of a, fun info type tab. You don't really necessarily need it. Raid attendance is extremely important. This will allow you to see your group attendance, per, raid team. So let's say your group has a 95% raid attendance requirement. Anytime you raid, it'll track that person in that group. And then over here on the right-hand side, it'll give you that percentage of how many times they were actually there. So for instance, if you see someone lower than 95%, you'll know, okay, they've missed, too many raids, this week, let's bench them next week, or whatever your consequences are for not meeting your attendance, requirements. Statistics of bosses. This tab you don't really need. This just kind of gives you information about, how many pulls you've done, how many kills you have, how long it actually took, who took the first blood, aka the first hit, so you don't necessarily, need it. Again, I don't use this one either. So this is more of just kind of like an information one, similar to the bonus loot one. Who pulled? This is a great one because this will literally tell you who pulled a boss. So if you are pre-pulling things, if you're body pulling something, and you're definitely not ready to actually have a real pull, you'll be able to see who actually pulled it, so you can blame them and yell at them, because they were being silly and dumb, and you can kick them out. No, I'm just kidding. Don't kick them out. Just laugh at them for being dumb. Saving logs. If you had logs enabled, you can actually save, the logs, to a specific location. I'm not going to go over this tab necessarily for right now, but again, if you want to have this set up, please let me know, and I will go ahead and, give you further information about that. But this basically just, allows you to, automatically save them so you can upload it to WoW logs to be able to use it, in the future. So if you use like the general combat logging, from WoW itself, you can do it that way. Otherwise, the logs from this is actually a little bit more in depth. So, I would definitely recommend, using the internal game log first, just to kind of get used to logging. And then once you are more comfortable with logging, then switch to the Exorsus Raid Tool logging, because this gives you a lot more in-depth details, and then it'll save whatever, you've logged into a similar pattern. And when you upload it to WoW logs, it'll be much easier to see, specific info. And then finally, WeakAuras check. Anytime you have a party or a raid and anyone has a specific weak aura loaded, you will be able to see what they have loaded here. And using this tool, you can share it with every single person in your raid who also has weak auras. So this allows you to kind of mass import, people's weak auras to other people. So for instance, let's say you are constantly running, visions for people. You can actually have, vision weak auras. And then once they come in to your group, you can push that weak aura to those players, and they'll have that weak aura for that vision. And that is pretty much it for Exorsus Raid Tools. This is one of the best raiding add-ons that I would recommend to use as a raider as well as a raid leader. So I would, again, definitely recommend this. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to post them in the comments below. Otherwise, I would like to thank you guys for taking the time to go over this information. I hope you liked it. Please feel free to give me a like on the video. I would highly appreciate if you could subscribe to see future videos. And in the future, there will be more, raiding specific resources for this series. For example, next video we'll actually go over personal loot and ways you can make looting a little bit easier. A couple videos after that we'll go over WeakAuras specifically, and a few other add-on videos will be coming shortly as well. And then other than this rating series, I will also post up other in general World of Warcraft videos, such as Mythic Keystones, Visions, and other just kind of in general information. So again, hope you guys like this. Please drop a like. Please subscribe so you guys know when new videos are coming up. And I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.